Hi, this is Megan of Megan's Creations. Today I'm going to show you how to add a border inside of shapes, and we'll be using work paths to do that. First of all, we start with our shape, and I got these custom shapes from Photoshop. Let's say that you have a shape maybe like this star that's not a solid color. The magic wand may not select it right. As you can see, it didn't get the outside of it. What we could do first is duplicate this layer, bucket fill a layer above it, and create a clipping mask on top of that, and use this as a dummy shape to do our outline and do our stroking for the border, and then get rid of this dummy layer and put it on top of the original layer. That's something we can do if you already have a textured shape that you were wanting to add a border to. Okay, back to this one. Let's start with this shape up here and how we had the solid outline. Like I said, we'll take the magic wand tool, click on the shape, and now we'll go to select, modify, contract. Let me see if I can move that over so you can see that. Select, modify, and then there's these options here. And we're going to be using contract. Okay, and so that'll bring it in, suck it in. I'll do about 50 pixels for this one. You can always play around with it. If you go back and forth and decide that it's not enough or it's too much, go around. You can do step back, Control Alt Z, step back and change how much you're contracting it. Then I'm creating a new layer above my shape, and I'm going to this Paths menu right here, the Paths tab. The only one that shouldn't be grayed out down here that has to do with paths is this one, and it says make a work path from the selection. Click that, and now this is a work path, and we're going to stroke it with the brush tool. So again, make sure that you have a new layer above that. And now we're going to go to the brush tool. Make sure that the foreground color is one that'll show up against your shape. And then we're going to use the basic circle brush, and I think this will be a good thickness here, 24 pixels. We can always go back and try to change it. Then we'll go to our brush palette menu here, and we do some adjusting in here. So under shape dynamics, I would choose direction. I'm going to take off angle jitter, but you can see what it would do to the brush stroke. If you don't want it to be even, maybe if you want it to look a little inked or doodly, you could play around with the angle jitter and also the roundness jitter. But I'm going to make it smooth. And I have the direction so that as it takes these angles, these curves here, that it tries to smooth them out as possible. And then we'll click on this circle here, which will say stroke path with brush. And that creates our line. If we want to test out different paths, maybe you want to see what it would look like with dots or what would it look like with stars, then what we could do is we go back to the layers and we could add a new layer, go ahead and make the one you just did invisible, and the work path is still there. And it will stay there until we hit this little trash can. So you can try out different work. You can maybe do different thicknesses and then play with the visibility to go back and forth till you make a decision. But once you decide on the stroke to path that you want to delete the work path. That line will show up on your layouts if we don't delete it. So we'll go ahead and trash it now. Okay, but that's our solid line. Now let's look at making a dotted border. We'll start by choosing the magic wand, selecting our shape, then we'll go to select, modify, contract. This I'll choose about 60 pixels this time. You can always adjust that. Create a new layer above the shape layer. Go to the paths menu, create a work path from the selection. Then go to the brushes. We will choose a round brush. You can choose stars, hearts, whatever. It'd be really fun to test out some different ones. Check that it's going to be the size that you want it to be. Then we'll go over to the brush palette, and under brush tip shape, we will change the spacing. By default, it's going to be really small spacing so that it's a smooth line when you use the brush tool in Photoshop, but we will expand out the spacing. If you do 100%, they'll be touching, so we want to do more than 100%, and it's hard to know exactly how far apart to space them. It depends on the size of your brush, it depends on the shape you're using, so you'll often get overlapping circles in the path like this, and I like to just erase them and do it by hand to fix it. but we can also try different spacing. You can always create a new layer on top of the shape and keep the work path so that you can try out different combinations and see what you like the best. And it just takes some playing around to get the spacing the way you want it to be. So let's try one more time using about this spacing. I'm liking that. There's not too many dots touching each other in areas. Go ahead and remember to delete the work path, otherwise that line will show up. And so we've done a solid line and we've done a dotted border. These would be great for journal mats, for photo borders, for page borders. You can play around with different shapes, different brush types. It'd be really fun to try that out and add some flair to your journal mats. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and I'll see you next time.